with the adjustment of the microphone. Good evening. Assuming, of course, I can adjust the microphone and not kick myself in the head with it. Good evening, everybody here. Thank you very much for coming out on a very, very cold night in Hamilton. I am your host and one of the performers. I'm Mike Derbecker, which, yeah. That's more than I've had for months. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, just in advance, to George and Dex over there, who are managing things like lights and recordings and so on. This is the third storytelling event that I've hosted here, and the theme for this evening is going to be the last straw. My idea for that was everybody has hit some kind of a scenario where they realize, I can deal with everything in my life. I can do it. And then something happens. The straw can be insignificant. It can be 3 times the size of the other straws that have been falling on your back. And I'm always fascinated by what people respond to. And whether they say, this was the last straw, and I deserved my response, or this was the last straw, and, plus with hindsight, maybe I could have done something a little bit differently. I do have my own story about this, and it's a doozy. Not necessarily proud of my actions, but hey, who is? This is the first time, by the way, I've had to deal with a stoplight? No, stoplight is for cars. A spotlight, this is pleasingly surreal because I can't really see anybody. It's like I'm staring into the ether. So I assume that there are people out there and they're enjoying themselves, or I'm just talking to an otherworldly being, and I'm not on any mind-altering substances, so I don't think that's the case. I'm going to leap into our first performer, who has been nice enough to send me a introduction, and since I'm getting old and going blind, I have to wear readers, and I'm going to read it off a phone. 1 second. Dignity, above all, dignity. I'd like to read what she has sent for me, and then I'll explain why I wanted her to be here tonight. Edith Chávez is a Mexican-Canadian. She's a stand-up comedian, storyteller, public speaker, and enjoys spending time with her family, friends, and, of course, Netflix. I have seen her perform. I've not been part of the same venue before, but having seen her delivery and her, I'm trying to think the best word, mentality struck me as really, really interesting. And having seen her do straight stand-up, I wanted to see what she would do with the narrative in a story. I've always been weird enough to think that comedians should try to do something outside of the wheelhouse. I'm the weirdo who always wants to see Bill Murray playing drama, for example, because he can do it very, very well. And I like knowing that people who have a talent in one direction can kind of put it in another direction and surprise you. So that's what I am expecting from Edith, and I'm sure she's going to do it. And without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, Edith Chávez.
Hi. Thank you. Well, my name is Edith Chávez. I'm from Mexico. And now from Canada. When I was invited to this event, I was trying to look for things that happened in my life that I felt that my camel's back was broken. But that will be sour and sad, so I won't. But then I thought, this saying is so popular that everybody's like, how you say it? The last straw that breaks the camel's back. I was like, where's the camel in Canada? Why you guys say the camel? Why don't you use a moose, a horse? But then I look where it comes from. And in the 1700s, somebody wrote that, but it seems like when the British went to the Arab countries, they take it back, they bring it, or they brought it to England. and then it stick on it, like you kept it. But I'm wondering, the guy who brought it to his wife, like, that's it. That's the last straw that breaks my camel's back. And the wife is like, are you on drugs? Like, why is this? But then I thought, how it sticks in this culture. So I thought maybe the guy went to his friends and said, guys, my wife, that's the last straw that breaks the camel's back. And the friends were like, yeah, cheers for that. And then it got popular. I don't know. In Mexico, we have a similar idea, but we said, it's the last drop that spilled the cup of water. I was like, well, that makes sense. We have cup, we have water, we have seed. But the camel. But then I thought, okay, wait a minute. Mexicans also, we have some weird sayings, like you put a lot of sour cream in your tacos. You put a lot of sour cream in your tacos. It's when you are exaggerating what you did, like, oh, tonight it was very well, it was a lot of people, and it was not that many, is that you are putting a lot of sour cream in your tacos. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Or that's another one, that aquí mis chicharrones truenan, which means my pork rings, you know, the crunchy stuff? Pork rinds, thank you. My pork rinds are crunchy here. Are not the pork rinds always crunchy? That means, like, if I am here, I will make everything happen, or it will be successful just because I'm here, no? It's like, that's a weird saying. So I won't criticize the camel's back, but then I will tell you a story that happened to me. I will tell you. We went to a camp. It was dark. It was night. And my friend Maria Jose didn't have a sleeping bag. And she's like, I don't have a sleeping bag. And the counselor was like, well, we have some. She was like, I told you they have sleeping bags here. You didn't have to bring yours. I was like, well, I bring mine. Like, that's it. That's okay. She's like, well, whatever. Maria Jose was taller. Well, not taller because I'm not tall, but tall and skinny and so sassy. So the counselor went for her sleeping bag, bring it back, and she said, here. She's like, thank you. And then they said, okay, now you can take your bed. It was bed bunks? It's called bed bunk beds. Bunk beds. So she ran and grabbed the top one. I was like, no, Maria Jose, that was mine. And she's like, no, you lose it. I was like, whatever. So I take the lower one. And we were there. And then she unrolled her sleeping bag. And her sleeping bag was like up to here. And it was like a sarcophagus, like a vat sleeping bag. You know, like she couldn't even move. Like she was like, oh, this is so short. Can I have a bigger one? No, we don't have more. Oh my God, give me yours. No, Maria Jose, I brought mine. Maria Jose was like, okay, that's good. She was complaining. And then finally the counselor said, okay, now guys, go to sleep. Good night, night, night. So Maria Jose took the bunk part, the upper one. I got into my sleeping bag, very cozy, good night. And then she's like, I was like, Maria Jose, stop it. And she was like, stop, you stop. I was like, what? Don't bother me. I was like, I'm not bothering you. And she's like, good night, good night. And then 5 minutes later, stop it. I was like, what happened? Like, what are you, like, what's going on? And she's like, stop it, I know it's you. But I was wondering, like, if it's not me, I don't feel anybody in the lower part of the bunk bed. Like, what is happening? And then 5 minutes later again, that's it. The last straw for Maria Jose. She stood up, ran to the light, turned on the light, and looked at me like, stop it. I was like, what's up? What's going on? What? Who's bothering me? I was like, I don't know. Not me. That's weird. Somebody's putting a piece of cloth in my face. I was like, I don't know, like a piece of, are you crazy? She's like, no, I'm sure. I'm like, well, I don't know. And then we look up, and it was these 2 vats, like huge vats. They were flapping in her face. That was horrible. How much time left do I have left? Please keep going. Second story is my mom is very Catholic, and I am not. And she insisted on me being Catholic. But it's like, okay, Mom, yes. So she has her favorite church, the Cathedral of Mexico City, in the center of Mexico City, and we went there. And she's like, oh, this is a great opportunity for you to confess your sins. I'm like, is it? Pardon me, but if I don't believe how many sins or which sins do you want me to tell the priest, I don't know. And she's like, oh, you should confess. I was like, well, okay, that's it. Okay, yes, Mom, yes, I can do that. So she went to the priest and asked him for a special favor to confess, to listen to my confession for my sins. The priest was handsome, young. I was like, very saint, like he was a priest, like, you know. And he's like, yes, I can do that. So he came to me. And then he started saying, like he was like, my mom left. She was looking at me in the distance, very proud of her daughter. And I was like, well, okay, yeah, that's it. And the priest started saying, like, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. I don't know. What is he doing? And then he looked at me like, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. And on the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. And I'm thinking, how many prayers he has to do before I have to confess my sins? And he's like, get away now. When you know how to confess, then you come back. Until now, I don't know how to do that. Yeah, my mother was very happy because she didn't hear anything. She was like, oh, did you confess? I was like, well, no, because he kept praying. Yeah, so until now, I don't know. I haven't confessed my sins. I don't know which sins are confessable, which are not. I don't know which are sins, which are not. Yeah, but that's my story. Thank you.
I'm under the impression if you don't know what your sins are, the whole point of confession does become kind of moot. Then again, you may actually be missing something out. I mean, some of the best sins provide good cardio and flex, among other things. So you might want to look it up, figure out what the sins are, and then, you'll have something to talk about next time, and you get that good cardio and flex that was mentioned in the earlier comment. I do have a request for everybody here, and it's a really incredibly low-level audience participation request. It's very, very low level. It usually involves moving forward around 1.5 feet because our audio-video person has mentioned that everything is going to look much better for the live cast and for the recording if the front rows are filled. Are there any volunteers here who will gladly move to the front tables? Give yourself a hand, my Lord. Greater love hath no people than to do what you just did. Ask and I shall receive. I would like $40,000 in bearer bonds, please. Is it because I didn't go to confession? Exactly. I'm not even. I do have an excuse for this. I'm not even Catholic. I don't need to go to confession. That's a different monologue. Second person I'm going to bring up has been here on a few different occasions, and I have known him for a very long time. I didn't know that he would be as good a storyteller as he is. Now, when I knew him at first, we were working together at a software firm, and we were both working on video games. He was primarily an artist. We got along very well, and when I was performing in Toronto, he came to the event once or twice and then said, I'd like to take part in one of the open mics. And his piece was intense and dark and funny and had people's jaw on the floor. So I'm always happy to have him here. He's come all the way to Hamilton more than once. And whatever his take is on this topic, I'm looking forward to it. So ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to bring out Brian Theriault.
Hi. Well, today's story is about my last girlfriend. She always had a way of getting under my skin. First time I met her was at a ska concert in Toronto, and I know most of the kids are not going to know what the hell that is. Anyways, sorry. She had just been in a fight with two girls in the bathroom. The two girls had followed her in, and one accused her of hitting on her boyfriend. And she followed them out, and then she jumped on me, thinking that I was one of their boyfriends. So she had blood on her face, tears in her eyes, and big brown eyes. The kind that you want to feed table scraps to. And she stuck her tongue down my throat and tickled my heart. So we started going out after that. She brought me to meet her parents. She was a traditionalist that way. Her father collected art, collected lots of beautiful things. His wife was a great example. Unfortunately, their product, the daughter, did not. He inquired why I was going out with his daughter. And I could do better. Well, I replied to him, I'm going out with her because she's fun. And then I stopped myself from punching him in the face. Yeah, he was a piece of work. I know why she was so stuck with daddy issues after that. But So she took me to a party with some of her schoolmates. I was 17, or no, I was 19 at the time. She was 17. So she's still in high school, and she walks around the room and she goes, "Oh, there's my old boyfriend." I go, "Yeah? Well, he stole my virginity. You should go over there and beat him up." I'm like, okay, sounds a little weird. Went over and talked to him. I said, "I'm her boyfriend." And he didn't seem nervous. He just kind of goes, "Oh yeah, I dated her." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, it's not really what I was expecting for somebody who more or less violently sexually assaulted somebody." So we kept going with the inquiry, and he didn't seem to be at all upset about the whole thing. His two friends kind of drifted away, and I thought, I don't feel like beating this guy up. So I told him, "You should be grateful and apologize to her." So he did. She didn't let me forget it for a week, constantly yelling at me. Well, that's okay. I guess she forgave me when we went to a hardcore show. Well, hardcore, it's a punk term. We went to a punk club in Toronto called Larry's, and they were having a dance-a-thon type thing, just playing some music before the show actually started. My girlfriend went to the washroom, and as she's coming back, she gets hit in the face with a leather jacket. There was a guy, some college kid, dancing on the dance floor, and he got all sweaty and took off his leather and threw it over to the bouncer, but he missed the bouncer. So, girlfriend's all pissed off. Comes to the table. "I'm taking this jacket." "Oh, okay. We gotta go now." "Oh, okay." So we dash out to the car, and I leave my beer behind, and we never saw the band. Very interesting. So I ended up paying for the jacket, but she gave it to me after. We watched the guy come out and scream, "Where is she?" looking up and down the street as we drove past in the car. She really enjoyed that whole thrill of stealing. And she showed me how much she appreciated me later on with her mouth. Yeah, she's a special thing. Well, she told us to go to another party. This was out in the suburbs. So we went to the party. When we got there, we didn't have any condoms. So she said, "Go find me some condoms." Okay. So hop in a car and start driving around. Now, we could have got condoms right at the beginning of the night. There's a 24-hour pharmacy right next to our house. Can't do that. Somebody might recognize you. Then they would know I'm having sex with you. Can't do that. Okay, so I just drive around, going to Five and Dimes, talking to people whose English is a second language, trying to explain to them what a condom is, and asking them through sign language where the latest all-night pharmacy was. Well, that went nowhere. Hour and a half later. Hour and a half of driving around. I get back to the party. And she wants to leave. She's getting hauled out by her two friends. I'm like, "What did you do? Why did you let this happen? I mean, I'm only gone an hour and a half and she's already blotto." God. So I gave her friends crap. But it turns out she was actually servicing anybody with a penis at the party, and therefore she wanted to have the condoms for, I don't know, an added rate. I don't know. But, she's a big girl. She does what she wants to do, and I don't own her, I didn't put a ring on that finger. She can do whatever she wants. Well, anyway, she did whatever she wanted with the big guy. And I guess he kind of negotiated with her. And it turns out that he didn't do what he was supposed to do and ended up finishing inside of her. Well, I didn't find that out until a month later, obviously, because why would anybody reveal something like that unless it was an issue? Well, the issue needed to be sorted, but by that time she'd come up with a clever plan. It's easy, just fool Captain Oblivious. We know what to do. There's something wrong with the condom. We did something wrong, and now, blah, 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 I'm pregnant. Okay, well, you know, I was programmed back in the 50s. I know all about this stuff. We get married. No, she said. Okay, well, her body, her choice. We're in Canada. It's legal. No, that's not what she wanted to do either. Her mother was in the healthcare industry, and she thought that her mother would be able to see any medical treatments done to her daughter on her records. So that makes everything more complicated. So I end up doing a road trip with her two besties, and we drive all the way across international borders. Isn't that fun? We go to Buffalo. And then, after a surgical treatment, we get to drive for 4 hours in a car. I don't know how those guys at the border let us through. I mean, suspicious? We're there for like 2 hours. She's crying her face off as we're coming across the border. Good Lord, what happened here? Anyways, we got across the border. Now, not to change gears too hard, but later on, she ended up getting accepted to a college or a university in Ottawa. And some friends of mine said, well, you know what would be good? If you did something too. So I put an application into a college in Oakville. Well, she got accepted, and so did I. Now, it was not easy for me. The first week was very painful. You know, you take a whole bunch of art students and you put them all in a high concentration. Well, guess what? There's going to be a lot of drugs. Well, I was kind of susceptible to stuff like that. And that's what happened. First week, I woke up in my car and I went, oh, I can't do this anymore. This is wrong. I got to fix it. So I stopped doing drugs. The community there was quite helpful. They kept me busy, gave me things to do, stopped me from being idle. But I got a call from my girlfriend. She said, I sent you a letter. Yes, I'm that old. People sent letters back then, okay? She sent me a letter, but we weren't allowed to read it. Okay, well, why not? She wouldn't explain. Okay, fine. Saw her like 2 weeks later. Went up to Ottawa to visit. There was a concert. We went and saw a show. She seemed okay. Didn't talk about anything bad at the college or anything like that. So I didn't know what was wrong. So when I got home, naturally, I read the letter. Well, it turns out that she needed a little extra to help her get through her classes and wanted to spice it up with a little illicit drugs, but she didn't have enough money. Didn't know how to do this. She knew I was broke because she spent everything in my bank account before she left. So what she wanted to do was make a little money on the side, using her mouth. Well, but you wouldn't do it unless I said it was okay. Like, she's still in high school? Ouch. Just, I wouldn't want that letter read either. Anyways, the semester ended. I got pretty good grades. I was kind of impressed. The teachers apparently had been wagering who would drop out by the end of the first semester. I was on the top of the list. But I had pretty good grades. She, on the other hand, did not. She failed her first semester, and she dropped out. Came back to the city and wanted to pick up where we left off. Big problem was, I don't have a job anymore. No money in the bank account, remember? Yeah, I could barely afford driving around the city, let alone the price of concert tickets. Well, she didn't like that. She came to visit me in the college. On the drive back, she was just slagging everybody in the class. More or less trying to convince me to leave that and go back to what I was doing before. Well, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep going. I was feeling a sense of accomplishment. It was working for me. Anyways, that is not when we broke up. That was not the last straw. She calls me a couple of days later, tells me, my mother found your letters. She read them. She knows that we had sex. Oh no! Boyfriend and girlfriend. She's in university. She had sex. Wow, that's horrible. I'm sorry to hear that. And that's not when we broke up. She goes, my parents want you to come by and talk to them. Because after all, wink, wink, elbow, you were my first. I have a feeling they were on the phone. I was standing behind her when she was talking on the phone. Like, I was your first. Yeah. That wasn't the last straw either. It was when she told me that I was her first. I'm like, oh, I get it. You're throwing me under the bus. You're pushing me out in front of the bus so that they'll hit me rather than hit you. It's very interesting. That was the last straw. We negotiated. She ended up with the jacket. She got custody of the jacket. But I also stuck inside the jacket pocket the letter that she had sent me. That letter would have been really fun for her mother to read, wouldn't it? I left that up to her. She wanted to let her mom find that around somewhere. But watching the whole thing while it was going on was my wife. She was in college with me at the time. She watched the whole flaming wreck crash and burn right in front of her. She met her. Yeah. Took me 3 months to realize that that person at my elbow who kept giving me encouragement and buying me coffee was being really nice to me. Well, we've been together for 40 years now. So that was my last straw story.
That is beautiful. I was not, I have a peripheral connection to that story, very, very limited. I was not, by any definition, a punk, ever. I was kind of an angsty theater student. But I did date a punk, so I remember Larry's in fairly graphic detail. Cardboard in winter. Do you know what I'm talking about? Does anybody here? On the floor, yeah. Absolutely, a lot of cardboard. I remember walking in and hearing this distinct squish and feeling all of the ice and all of the salt and this bizarre smell of salt and water and rotting cardboard and whatever beer had been spilt and the level of sweat in the room and the perfume of the woman I was dating, who I never understood why she wanted to date me, because she was a punk, I wasn't. But I've got this weird sense memory. I could walk in there right now. It's probably exactly the same. Does it still exist? No. Toward? Oh, well, thank God. And speaking of the past, the next performer is somebody I knew a very long time ago. So a couple things. Firstly, I'm very happy she's here. I wanted her to be here because I'm sure that whatever perspective she brings to this is going to be unique. I have an introduction. There's no way to put on reading glasses with any dignity, by the way, so please forgive me. So this is the official story. Kristen Johnson is a performer, artist, and she makes short films often involving puppets. She worked for years in Toronto's alternative theatre scene and once playing Ophelia in an 8-hour version of Hamlet, which I saw, by the way, just for the record. And once, very early on, she was in an infamous production of Spring Awakening alongside your host, that would be me. So we were in the same play a very long time ago. If you saw my last event here, where I talked about a play I'd been in, that is the play. For those who are following along at home. As a film actor, she has worked on projects with David Cronenberg, Jeremy Podeswa, and The Kids in the Hall, among others. And her paintings are part of private and public collections all over North America, Europe, Australia, and Japan. Her short films have been seen in festivals worldwide as well. So that is one hell of a pedigree. I knew that she would come tonight, and I knew whatever she's going to do, it's going to reflect that pedigree. And I say this as a compliment. I don't know where her motivation comes from. I don't know where she gets her ideas. I've always known that she's got a distinct sense of what she wants to put out. And this goes back 40 years. We were at the same high school. I haven't seen her for a very long time. I'm delighted she's here. And with that introduction, ladies and gentlemen, Kristen Johnson.
Hi, thank you. I'm Kirsten. Basically, I do things, I make things, I pretend to be things. So, I have happily been with the same man for 25 years. Thank you. His name is Jeff, and it's the British spelling with a G. Jeff's real name is Jeff. But this is not about Jeff. This is about Tibor. Tibor's real name is not Tibor, but it is Tibor that came to mind when I heard the theme of tonight, which was the last straw. Now, the last straw is not a concept that I interact with very often. I tend to let things go on way longer than they should. Basically, I'm an emotional coward. Or maybe I crave adventure. Maybe when you crave adventure, you need time and patience. Anyhow, that's how I sold it to myself when I was in my mid-20s, and I did all kinds of freaky and sometimes dangerous things, like this film. I had been cast in a short film along with 5 other actor friends, and it was about Plato's myth of separated souls. And anyhow, it was confusing. I didn't really have a clear idea what was going on. I don't think they did either. And it was being shot at Symptom Hall, the infamous Symptom Hall, which is a booze can / party space in the 90s Toronto. And so we arrive, and there is a surprise nudity request. And so, okay, all right, there's 6 of us, and we're all going to be together, and I think the lighting's going to be pretty dark with strobe lights. So, right, an adventure. Okay, so, all right, we'll do it. And I really needed the $50 honorarium. I at this point, I was really determined not to move back into my parents' basement, and also I really wanted to make more of my money from doing art as opposed to doing, temporary secretary stuff. And I knew it was going to be hard, but I really wanted to try. Anyhow, we're there all day, and we're naked, and we're doing the play. And all day, I see in the background, oh, there's this man. Oh, he is striking looking. He's tall, and he's lanky, and he looks really mysterious, and he's all dressed in black. And then at the very end of the day, when he finally comes up and talks to me, I realize, oh, his voice is fantastic, because he comes up and he says, I was wondering if I could bring you a drink. And I said, why, yes, I will take this drink that you might bring me. Thank you. Anyhow, we very soon after that began dating. And this was Tibor. And Tibor was fun, and he was silly, and he would get drunk, and he would do this crazy puppet dance, and his arms would flail out all over the place. And it turns out he wasn't in the crew. He actually lived at Symptom Hall, and he had this crazy backstory. He was from Hungary, but he had spent a couple of years in a European refugee camp, and to support himself, he ran the refugee camp booze can. And when I found out, okay, he is between places, he says, I am between places, and I'm about to be in between places. My roommate is moving, and so he tells me he has a friend who can rent us a place for $200. And I'm thinking, oh, $200? I could support myself only as an artist if I was only paying $200 rent. Okay, so I move in with him. It's too fast. And this place, it is deeply crappy. It's a dilapidated church, and we're in the back part of the basement. There's not even a working window. You know those shower blocks that you can see through? So the window you can't open, the one window, unless you count taking out the styrofoam block that had been shoved in there for air. Anyhow, so that's where we're living. But the best part of it was across the street was this park that I loved. And it actually wasn't a park. It was actually a cemetery, and like the oldest cemetery in Toronto. And I only knew this because just by chance, I saw this woman walking by with a whole bunch of people behind her, and she was running one of those history tours, and I followed her, and she told us that this park was connected to Fort York, and Lord Simcoe's infant daughter was buried there, is buried there, and hundreds and hundreds of soldiers. And I love that fact. I don't believe in ghosts, but I would go to that park often and just sit there and think about that and just feel that. Anyhow, cracks start to show with Tibor very soon. I just had never really been around that level of alcoholism before. I didn't, certain things like, for me, alcohol was connected to parties, and parties were something that you did to punctuate the rest of your life, your real life being like working and cleaning and working some more. But then he was, like, I didn't realize that the 3-day bender was an actual literal thing. It was just, I was in way over my head. And he would be angry about it too. It's not like it was a constant party. He would, especially when he'd be hanging around with his other friends, like-minded friends, often immigrant friends, and he'd be saying things like, no way am I going to pay taxes because the government is always trying to screw you. And then another time he would insist that it was cultural. He goes, what, in Hungary you get up, you see your mother, you complain, you see your neighbor, you complain, you go to work, you complain. It is better than you being Canadian all the time laughing for no reason. And that stung, because it's a little bit true in general, but also more specifically to me it was true because I just felt like I was being forced into being cheerful all the time just to balance things out. And I tried to help. Oh, I tried to help. He said that he drank too much because he had a bad back. I bought him a back brace. He left it in a bar. I bought him a bicycle for exercise. He left that outside of the bar and it got stolen. I got him a theater tech job and he got fired because he was too hungover. I couldn't do it. I mean, it's ridiculous. He didn't ask for my help. He didn't want my help. He wasn't going to change. And I guess it was an epiphany that I had, which is a little bit different than the last straw. It was an epiphany, a slow, drawn-out epiphany that I just tucked way back inside and did not act on. Then there was a night I was invited by a friend who had a very fancy boyfriend who was much older than us, and he was going to turn 40 and have a big party at a bowling alley, and I was going to come there and be the photographer, and I was going to get a $50 honorarium, which, I need. And so as soon as I get there, I realize, oh my God, I'm in over my head. I had a fully manual camera. I was fine in my studio taking pictures, but like here, the bowling alley, you've moved, and now the lighting is different, and you just got a strike, and I missed it, and I just wasn't up to snuff, and I was feeling very stressed about that because I hate doing a bad job. And then on top of it, there was this also ancient guy of 40, I thought at the time, who was hitting on me really aggressively all night, and he would not stop, and I'm trying to be professional. Anyhow, he wouldn't stop, and so finally, and I don't like to say this, I said, look, I have a boyfriend. It's a bit passive, but sometimes it's the only thing people listen to, but it didn't make him stop. It just made him switch gears and have a different strategy. And he said, oh, boyfriend, well, do you love your boyfriend? And I thought, you know what? Yeah, I do. I love my boyfriend. And then he asked me, well, do you want to have kids with your boyfriend? I thought, that is none of your business. But actually, I don't want to have kids in general, so I guess the answer is no. What? And he looked at me, which is often the response that you get if you say you don't want to have kids. People look at you like you've got 3 heads. And it's like, it's fine. I'm fine being an auntie. I really, honestly, some people don't want to have kids. It's okay. But he wouldn't let it go. And he goes if you loved your boyfriend, you would want to have kids with him. And he went on and on and on about it. And I'm trying to be professional. I'm trying to take pictures. And he just won't stop. So finally, I go home. And I take that bit of knowledge, too, because he really got under my skin. And it wasn't because he was right about the kid thing or whatever. It's just because somehow he had sensed that I was in a doomed relationship, and he knew it. And I just went, okay, I'm just going to take that, and I'm going to put it with the other stuff that I'm not going to act on, and I'm just going to go home. I just want to go to sleep. So I get home, and it is like a whirlwind has hit the apartment. There's beer, bottles everywhere. Pizza, 2 or 3 pizza things, boxes in the open, like half eaten, and there's broken beer bottles, and there's beer on the floor. The stove is on, and the refrigerator is ajar, and one of my paintings on the wall is just tilted at this weird 12-degree angle for some reason I can't figure out, and I'm just in shock. I go oh, Tibor's having a party with his friends, and he's gonna be gone for a while. He is gone. There's nobody there. And I just kind of go into this shock. And I go into robot cleaning shock mode. So all I'm doing is okay, turn off the stove. I'm going to put the beers in there. I'm going to put the beers away. Okay, I'm going to clean that up. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I do this for about an hour. And then finally, after an hour goes by, as I'm cleaning, I see one little undrunk beer, and it's in the corner. And I guess it had scooched itself into the corner because it was afraid of the alcoholic Eastern Europeans and tried to hide. So I take that beer, and I say, okay, I'm going to go to the park. So I go to the park, and I have a beer, and I don't believe in ghosts, but I thought, okay, today I'm just going to let that go. I'm just going to believe in ghosts for the next little while because I feel like I need some friends. I'm sitting there, I have my beer. Kirsten, go. This is a 3-day bender. You have 72 hours. Get all your stuff and move out. Move back to your parents' place. It's okay. You'll be an artist later. Just go. So I do. And it was it. I had 72 hours, and I took it, and back to mom and dad's I go, thank you for living in Toronto. Oh, and 6 months later, I see my friend Jeff, who's just my friend at this point, and weirdly, he has gone through something very similar with somebody that we shall call Dawn. And anyhow, Dawn wasn't an alcoholic, but she had her issues, and basically all Jeff and I did for the first 2 years was talk about Tibor and Dawn and how much we had cared and loved them and wanted them to change and wanted them to be different and wanted to help, and we just couldn't. There was nothing we could do. Basically, we had both gone to some sort of weird relationship boot camp, and then when we finally got together, we were better people for it. And yes, we've been together very happily for 25 years. And that's my last straw story. Thank you.
Just one more time, please. Kristen Johnson. I think everybody goes through some level of the relationship boot camp. Sometimes a boot camp is like a weekend, and sometimes it's several months at Paris Island or something like that. That was wonderful. Thank you. I just didn't mention this before I introduced her. Kirsten has always done things that I could not possibly do. For example, she can paint. I can't even draw a square. And the 8-hour version of Hamlet that she mentioned, I saw it, and I sat there thinking, this is fascinating. This is brilliant. I have no idea where it came from. Had I been within 10 feet of that production, I would have lasted 15 minutes and walked out because I wouldn't have been able to think about it. She can, and she did. I have no idea how, but that's why I wanted her tonight. So just wanted to end that grace note there. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back in around 15 minutes. Please avail yourself of beverages, smoke them if you got them, and we'll be back. Thank you. going to check if anyone's outside. We'll start again in 2 minutes. Thank you. Greetings and salutations again. Woo. So this is my event. I guess I have to do a story. The most delightful aspect of The Last Straw is that it is usually going to be something tiny and insignificant that just pushes you over the edge. It can also be something, it can be the biggest straw available that you didn't notice. You know, it's just kind of been hanging around behind somebody's back and they whip it in your direction. You're never quite sure what it's going to be. And I thought of a few scenarios about when I was at the point where I reached, I think Kristen said, the epiphany. And this is the best example I could think of that. So I am in my mid to late 20s. I have a degree in screenwriting, and I have been an actor on and off. And at the time, all I was doing was working retail. I could work in film. I could have been a PA or something like that, but I didn't want to do that. I figured I'd be miserable doing that due to the schedule. If I work retail, I can be miserable, but at least I won't go crazy. And I'm working retail 4 out of 7 days a week, and I'm trying to save money to go to Ireland, specifically to go to Belfast, because they were still shooting at each other at the time. This is the early 1990s. And I thought if I went to Belfast, I would truly understand the Catholic, Protestant, Irish conflict, and I could write short stories about it, or I could write poems about it, and maybe I'd win a Nobel Prize or two, something like that. This would not have been a particularly good idea. And also, after months and months of working retail, I had saved up exactly enough money to buy a toaster. So it did not work out. But I had actually spent enough time there that I worked up some vacation days. I had a full week, and I wasn't quite sure what to do with it. I wanted to go away with my girlfriend someplace, and we couldn't quite figure out where to go. And my girlfriend was very unlikely. I mean, her name was Adelia, and she was gorgeous, and she had a really interesting background. Her father was Argentinian, her mother was Brazilian, so she spoke Spanish and Portuguese and Brazilian Portuguese. And she grew up in Brazil until she was around 6 years old, whereupon her father decided to move to Canada for legal reasons, quote unquote. These were never described to me. And of course, they went to Newfoundland, because that is a hotbed of South American culture in Canada right there. She was there until she was around 10, then they moved to Toronto. And she was fascinating. She was a musician first and foremost, and she was also a flamenco dancer. I met her at a party, completely unlikely, because I heard her talking about some woman. She walked in, she said, "You're so beautiful, you look like Sonia Braga." It's a Brazilian actress. And I said, "Oh, Sonia Braga from Donna Floor and Her Two Husbands, or Sonia Braga from Bye Bye Brazil?" She said, "You've seen those?" So yeah, I was a film student. I've seen lots of South American film, and I love those weird, Coffin Joe Brazilian movies, and we got along, and we started talking about that, and I was a keyboardist at the time. I was a passable piano player at best, but she was a musician, and we talked about stuff, and we went out for coffee, and we talked about stuff, and we went back to her place, and we discovered there were numerous things we'd like to do together. So I had this unlikely, completely we have nothing in common girlfriend, and I was kind of delighted. The problem was she was always gigging. She was always doing flamenco shows, or she was singing fado, or she was just playing in a band doing salsa music. We didn't see each other particularly often, so we both kind of knew, okay, this is not going to be a romance for the ages, but we liked each other. We genuinely liked each other. It was very nice when we had a couple of hours of genuine quiet. She didn't have a gig, I didn't have to work, that type of stuff. So you might imagine my delight. It's around February, early 90s. It's freezing cold, and she calls me and she goes, "Michael, do you want to have a dirty weekend?" This has my attention. I said, "Okay, please. What do you have in mind?" And she said, "I've got something better. Michael, you want to have a dirty week?" Tell me more. She had managed to be employed by somebody at Queen's University. They were doing a week-long session of dance and music, and they were bringing her in to teach flamenco to people. And she said, we can go to Queen's, and we're going to be doing this seminar. Now, we can stay for free. It's kind of like a bed and breakfast, and you can come to some of the sessions, but the schedule might change. But you can come to the sessions, and we're going to be away, and it's going to be a full week. What do you say? I'm thinking, beautiful woman, get out of town. I've got some vacation days. Wonderful. Okay, let's do it. She went up on the weekend before. I went up on the Sunday, and it's a very long bus ride. I primed myself by drinking what I referred to as a Withnell. Anybody seen the movie Withnell and I? Yes. Okay. So the way I would deal with a bus ride over 5 hours, I would have 2 pints of cider and 2 shots of gin. That'll put you to sleep. And I had the Withnell. I got on a Greyhound bus. I slept straight through for 5 hours, and I got to Kingston, Ontario to meet Adelia. And I went to this charming bed and breakfast that I had been told about. Okay. Details are very important. I didn't really know what this bed and breakfast was. And it wasn't a bed and breakfast. It's just the closest thing she could think of in English. It was sort of like a dorm. Actually, no, it wasn't a dorm. It was sort of like a commune. It gets better. It was a house with 8 or 9 rooms that during the day were going to be used for these seminars and these sessions and these music workshops, but we could sleep there at night. They had a pull-out couch in each room. So there's not going to be a great deal of privacy for quality time, however you want to define that. But, I'm here, it's Sunday, and it's going to be a great week. If nothing else, I got 5 days. We have 5 days together, and it's going to be great and contemplative and quiet, and we can actually spend some time together, and who knows what's going to happen. And I went up to the room, which at this point was sort of still being an office and sort of being a bedroom, and I left my jacket on the fold-out bed, and Adelia's going, Michael, come downstairs. I have to tell you something. I have a surprise for you. I have a surprise for you, too, actually. Come upstairs. I can show it to you. But I went downstairs, and I don't have my jacket because I left it upstairs because where are we going? And she's there, and she's got a parka on because it's February, and we are in Kingston. She says, oh, where's your jacket? Oh, it's upstairs. Do you want to go someplace? Oh, no, you can't go upstairs. Why not? Well, my friend Jane is up there, and she's with her boyfriend. Okay, well, I just knock on the door. No, they're upstairs together. Well, I said they could because they never see each other. So I had this terrible realization that my dirty weekend had begun. I just wasn't having it. Some other couple was in the middle of it. I said, okay, well, what do we do now? And they were already starting some sessions and some planning, so we couldn't stay in that building / bed and breakfast / office building. I don't have a jacket. It's February. She said, well, let's go across the street. Okay, so we do, and I sit there shivering at a second cup for around 2 hours while her friend and her other friend are enjoying my weekend, or our weekend, depending how you want to put it. And that was day 1. So it's not exactly as advertised, but I'm the first to assume, okay, maybe I made some assumptions here. It's not exactly what I had in mind. And it was kind of fun. There are a lot of musicians around, and they're all talking about salsa, and unfortunately a lot of them are speaking Spanish and Portuguese. I speak neither Spanish nor Portuguese. But I was at Adelia's side, and it was loud, and it was fun, and people were jamming, and eventually I kind of got tired, and I went upstairs, and I chased these people out of the bedroom, and she stayed up till around 4 in the morning, and then she left the next day at 8 a.m. to start these classes. So, first night, not exactly alone time with anybody, but that's okay. You know what? We got a whole week. We have a whole week ahead of us. Monday, she has classes, or sessions, I guess, starting at around 8 in the morning, and we're going to meet for lunch at noon. And we have a perfect restaurant. It's called the Chinese Laundry Cafe. I don't know if it exists anymore. It's still, it was in Kingston at the time. Everyone I knew who went to Queens said it was wonderful. She said, I'll meet you there. I'll meet you there at 12 o'clock. I'm there at 12. She's not there. I'm there at 12:15. She's not there. I'm there at 12:30. It's not there. This is in the primitive times, children. This is when cell phones were available, but they were incredibly expensive. So I didn't have one. She didn't have one. The way we decided to communicate is that if she got stuck someplace, she would call my Toronto answering machine. I would go to a payphone, call my own phone, listen to my messages, and hear her say something. And then I'd leave a message on her machine in Toronto. So while I'm saving money by not paying for accommodations, my long-distance fees are insane. This is day 1. Did I mention that? She's left a message. She goes, hi, Michael. I'm sorry. The schedule changed. I'm not going to make lunch, but I should be available. I've got another session at 2, and if the schedules don't change, I'll be back at the house at 4 o'clock. Okay. So I have lunch alone, and I walk around Kingston for a couple of hours. It's kind of pretty, even though it is February. It's kind of cold. I see the lovely architecture. I go back to the house. The room is still being an office, so I can't sleep there, but I can at least drop my bag. And she's not there at 4 o'clock. She's not there at 4:30, 5 o'clock. I call my messages. The second time she goes, yeah, I'm so sorry, the schedule changed. the schedule changed. I'll be there by 8 o'clock. I'll be there at 8. I have 3 hours to do nothing in Kingston. I go back upstairs. There's a guy going through my backpack saying, hey, I'm looking for smokes. Sorry, dude, I don't smoke. Oh, okay. You want to chip in for pizza? Yeah, sure. Okay, I found your wallet. I just took 20. I'll get you back. I mentioned this was like a commune, right? Okay, so I have a new policy. If I leave that establishment, I'm going to carry everything on my back. I'm not going to leave my bag anyplace. 8 o'clock, Adelia does not show up, but she's left a message saying, listen, there's a great restaurant downtown. It's called Jefe's. Come to Jefe's. I'm going to be there, and we're going to be jamming all night. I don't know where Jefe's is. That's all she said. She dropped off her message. I leave her a message saying, where the hell is this place? I ask everybody around where this place is. They have no idea what I'm talking about. I wander around downtown Kingston for an hour and a half. By 9:30, I have found the place. It's not called Jefe's. It's called Jeff's. And it's kind of fun. There are a lot of people. Once again, she's demonstrating flamenco. Flamenco is a wonderful art form, okay? I knew several people who have done it religiously, and I believe it's emotional, and it's intense, and it's completely 100% legitimate, okay? Having said that, I am a Philistine because it drives me crazy. It's like some people can listen to a particular type of music and think it's wonderful, and someone else goes, that's the same 8 notes over and over again. I am watching all this flamenco. I'm thinking, okay, let me guess. Is this the part where someone stands there and does this? Oh, let me guess. They're going to walk 3 feet to the right, and they're going to do this. Oh, wait, I know what's coming up next. They're going to walk 4 feet that way and do it again. I have overdosed on flamenco very early on. And it's fun, and we end up going back to the room at around 1 in the morning, and there were 5 of us because she's talking to 2 people who have come all the way from Brazil. They have no place to stay, so they're sleeping on our floor in an office building that has a pull-out couch. So it's cozy. It's a very cozy night, but this cannot exactly be said. It's wonderful alone time. So Sunday night, nothing. Monday night, nothing. I've only talked to her for an hour and a half each day. Okay, Tuesday, we're going to have breakfast. Tuesday morning. 8 in the morning, she wakes me up. She goes, we're going to have breakfast. We're going to go to the next workshop, and you are my guest. And they've got a whole buffet spread, and it's going to be wonderful. And I get there, and I'm with her, and I said, okay, this is wonderful. What do we do? And she goes, I'm really sorry. Actually, I didn't read the details enough. See, you haven't registered. And there's going to be a speech, and the material's copyrighted, so I can't bring you in. But I'm going to see if I can get you some toast. She walks into this hallway, someplace at Queen's University, and she comes out 20 minutes later and gives me 2 pieces of toast and says, this is the best workshop I've ever done. I really wish you were here. Can you listen at the door? Because you really should, because it's incredible. Well, okay, you don't speak Portuguese. Okay, well, it's still incredible, but here's some toast. And then she leaves. It's a 3-hour workshop. I did sign up for this. I signed up for the experience, at least. 3 hours, I walk around Kingston. I've learned a lot about Kingston. Largely, I've learned that it has a really large homeless population, as does everywhere, and they all hang out at the library. There are lineups, and there's Salvation Army walking around, people with little badges trying to be nice to the homeless and making sure they get a meal. God bless them. 3 hours later, I go back to the hall, and she's not there. The entire thing is over. I call my machine in Toronto. She says, okay, I'm so sorry, sweetie, but the schedule changed. I'm actually not going to be back at the house until 7. So now I've got 4 hours to do nothing. I wander around aimlessly for 4 hours. I'm losing weight. A lot of exercise, losing weight. I'm also kind of going broke because I'm sitting in pubs. I have nothing else to do. I'm sitting in pubs reading W.H. Auden poems because it's the only book I brought. Drinking beer, which gets kind of expensive after a while, and I go back to the house. Okay, 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. She said, okay, this is just going to be you and me tonight. It's only you and me. Everyone else is going to a different party. It's just going to be you and me. It's going to be wonderful. I'm thinking, great, finally, we can have one of these wonderful kind of quiet moments together until someone says, you do realize that nobody at this event actually speaks English, so they need a translator. So she goes to this event, and I sit in the back of the theater, and she explains salsa and how it relates to fado, and they don't relate in any way, shape, or form, by the way. It takes her an hour and a half to do this. She is bouncing between Spanish and Portuguese, and they're playing a lot of salsa, and she's singing some fado, and it's kind of beautiful, and it goes on until 2 in the morning. And at 2 in the morning, she is literally keeling over. I put her into a cab. I take her back, put her into this horrible, like, what was the expression? Purgatorial couch. I'm wired because I've been drinking coffee all day because I have nothing else to do. So that's Tuesday night. Wednesday night, I'm thinking I should get out of here. Pleasantly. Like I'm not angry, but it's very obvious that things are kind of messed up. I mean, she's going to be very busy, and she keeps saying, I'm so sorry, but the schedule's changed. All of the workshops I've signed up for, the schedule's changed. The schedule's all over the place. I can deal with that. I can't deal with the fact I get thrown out of this commune/dorm. I'm carrying everything on my back, and it's the Wednesday, and it's raining now. February, rain. I haven't shaved for 3 days. I am bedraggled. I'm carrying everything I own on my back, and I'm going broke. I mean, I have money, but this is, again, children, the prehistoric times. I go to a bank machine. My checking account is almost empty. I transfer from my savings account, and it says, okay, we can do that, but it's going to take 3 hours. So I can't even go to a pub at this point. I go to the library. I'm sitting in a study carrel in the library thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I putting up with this? I should probably just, my vacation is being ruined. I should just leave, and I'm looking miserable. And I'm sitting in a study carrel, I'm half asleep, and suddenly someone taps me in the shoulder and goes, why, hi. Look like you're having a bad day. And I lean over and I realize they've got the little Salvation Army pin. And I'm carrying all my possessions with me. And they think I'm homeless. And I'm about to say, no, I work retail in Toronto, and I'm here with my girlfriend. But this very nice Salvation Army man says, you know, if you're hungry, we've got some Subway sandwiches in the back room, and it's on us if you want one. I realized I have not actually had a meal with anybody for 4 days, so I said, you know what? Yeah, I'd love a sandwich. So I impersonated being a homeless person for an hour and a half to have company over lunch. And they were so nice. They gave me pamphlets. I didn't have time to explain, but I did say, you know, the place I live, I have to leave during the day. Well, a lot of places are like that, you know. It's not always easy. I had the sandwich. I said thank you. For the record, I did go back the next day, and I deposited $50, okay? Wednesday night, I've been bedraggled. I'm wet. I'm cold. She already had a dinner party, and the dinner party I went to. In the dinner party, I was by her side, and I understood what everybody was saying, and there was not an overemphasis on a dance form I do not appreciate, and it was great. It was great. We had this one wonderful, quiet evening, even surrounded by people. Unfortunately, the ceviche she was eating was not the best. I don't eat raw seafood, or I didn't at the time. She got horrible food poisoning and spent most of the evening between the purgatorial couch and the bathroom and various people trying to give her advice about how to deal with it. It's Wednesday night. She survives the night. She has a workshop 8 in the morning the next day. And it's Thursday, and I'm thinking, you know, I was going to jettison this. I was actually just going to go back to Toronto at this point. But you know what? We had a nice night, and it's not her fault that the schedule changes. This is just weirder than I thought. That's fine. You know what? It's going to be wonderful, and I'll hang out to the weekend. So what? I got out of town. That's something. And I walked into Queen's University, and I saw like a big blackboard that had the 10 workshops that happened every day. And there were people writing their name for each workshop. And I watched a woman go in, and she looked around, and she looked at the available workshops, and she scratched her name out of one, and she wrote her name in another one. And I said, excuse me, how do they tell you that the schedule changes? And she said, what are you talking about? I said, well, yeah, I just saw you left, the 3 o'clock, and you're taking the 1 o'clock. How do they tell you that you have to do that? She said, well, they don't. I mean, the workshops, you have to pay for 5, but if there's any space available, you can just take it. And it took me a minute to realize that Adelia was not being entirely honest, because it's not that the schedule had changed. She had changed her schedule. And she was taking 6 or 7 workshops a day when she had signed up for 3, which is okay, except for the fact she kept telling me, this is out of my hands. I'm not spending any time with you because the schedule's changed. No. She had chosen to take these classes rather than spend time with me, and I'm walking around being mistaken for being homeless. That is the last straw. Okay, now I feel I have the strength of the righteous. I call her Toronto answering machine and go, hi, hon, it's Michael. I'm at the university right now. Could you meet me at 2 o'clock? It's kind of obligatory. And she does meet me, and I say, do you realize what you've been doing? I have had nothing to do for the last couple of days. I'm sorry you got food poisoning, but this is nuts. You keep deserting me in the afternoons. You have been taking extra workshops. You didn't tell me that's how it worked. You have chosen to do this. I came all the way here to be with you. Why are you doing this to me? And I'm expecting a fight or an apology. I didn't get either one. She looked at me, and she gave me the most wonderful, sweet, incredible smile. And she said, well, maybe I didn't explain things properly. But you know what? It has meant a lot to me that you've been here, because what that means is we could spend time together anytime during these couple of days. And the fact that we can do that means a lot to me. I said, yeah, but we haven't. And she said, yeah, but we could have. But we haven't. I know, but we could have. And she looked really happy. And I said, okay, well, what do you want to do tomorrow? She said, well, the schedule's changed. I have things to do. And I realized we are having 2 very different conversations. And she kissed me passionately and said, we'll try to find some time tonight. We did not. So now it is Thursday morning, and I'm sitting around. I have all my possessions on my back. I've gone back to the Chinese laundry cafe. I'm wondering what I'm going to do. I don't know if I can put up with this. I've ordered lunch. I've ordered, for the record, I ordered a club sandwich and fries and a beer and a shot. And I brought a tuna and curry with an asparagus salad, which I'm sure is delicious. And I said, excuse me, I didn't order this. Also, I'm allergic to asparagus, and I'm allergic to curry powder. Can you get me what I ordered, please? And the waiter went, you know what? The cook has gone out for smokes. He'll be back maybe like half an hour. Okay, I can't eat this. Well, it's going to be half an hour. This is the second straw breaking what was left of my back. And I'm staring at the window. I said, okay, well, give me another beer, another shot. I'm knocking this back and thinking, if I could only escape, if only I could just leave this place. And I had an epiphany along the lines of the one mentioned previously, because while I'd been dropped off at the bus station, there was a second bus pickup right in the middle of the university, directly across the street from the Chinese laundry cafe. I was thinking, wouldn't it be wrong, if I were just to knock back this drink and not pay for my lunch and simply walk across the street and get on the bus and show them my ticket? That would be entirely wrong. Or I could merely say that the schedule had changed in good conscience. And by the time Adelia figures it out and she calls my machine in Toronto, I'll just pick up and talk to her, which is more than we've done over the last 5 days. I like this idea. And I watched the bus carefully, and I looked at my watch, figured out what time it would leave, and I'm timing the streetlights exactly Waiter's not talking to me. He's on the phone in the back. And eventually I stand up and go, I'm going for a smoke. I walk out of the restaurant. I walk across the street. I walk onto the bus. I show my ticket. I get on the bus. I sink very low in the seat as to not be seen through the window. And I pull out my portable CD player. I'm listening to Elvis Costello, King of America, my favorite track, which goes like this. And you say you've got to go. If you must, you must. I suppose that you need the sleep of the just. And I got it. Thank you very much. So I've got one postscript to that story. I am still in touch with Adelia. I called her and I told her I'd be telling this story. She almost came tonight, but her schedule changed. And that's not a lie. Enough about me. I want to bring up the next person. Faye, I have seen here since I started coming here, which was around a year ago. And I have seen her do stand-up and I've seen her do storytelling. Every time I've seen her, it's something different. We did a stand-up workshop here together, and she blossomed. I mean, she was good coming in. She was better coming out of it. And she has actually shown up in every storytelling event I've done thus far, and I have called her my good luck charm, and I mean it very sincerely. She's about to come on now. Thank you very much. Here is Faye Pollett.
Hello, everyone. Bye. No, don't be sorry. No, it's okay. You gotta go. You gotta do what you gotta do. Drive safe. Are you driving? Okay, yes. You're driving, you're not. Okay. Get home safe. Bye. We miss you already. No, it's okay. Oh, man. Okay. The final straw. Somewhere in there's a joke about like a waiter and one last straw in the thing, but anyway, my name is Faye Pollett and I am a 27-year-old lady. Not that matters right now. The final straw is, I think, defined as, I actually have it written down. Cambridge Dictionary defines the last straw as the last in a series of unpleasant events that finally makes you feel you cannot continue to accept a bad situation. The final straw, in hindsight, is often not the one we think it would be, which Michael kind of talked about. There were many straws before that could have, and maybe even should have been the one that was the breaking point. At the age of 19, I found myself in a relationship with a guy 12 years my senior. And I say guy because not really a man. And I was in that relationship for just under 3 years, and dear God, was it speckled, painted with red flags. But the thing about red flags is that they look a lot just like regular flags when you're wearing rose-colored glasses. Very corny, but right, very true. Oh man, yeah. It's embarrassing sometimes to think about the breaking points or the points that you look back and you're like, that should have been a breaking point. Like, why did I put up with that? What was I thinking? But like hindsight's 20/20. So, goodness gracious me. That spotlight is so bright. I feel like a star. But yeah, it can be pretty embarrassing to think about the amount of straws that were not the final one. For me, with this guy, it wasn't when we walked into his bedroom and saw a steak knife driven through his bedside table. I looked at it and I was like, oh, and he was like, well, you know, hey, what's that? And he was like, well, it's my knife table. You know, I kind of was like, and he was like, oh, just because I stab a table doesn't mean I'm going to stab you one day. It kind of does. No shade. But sadly, that was not the final straw. It wasn't when I got confirmation that he had been cheating on me throughout our relationship, or when he told me that it was my fault that he was cheating on me. I stayed for 3 months after that, and I think about that a lot. There's a quote from the book, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, by Stephen, I think it's Chbosky. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. And it essentially is, we accept the love we think we deserve, which, very true. I had very, very low self-esteem, self-worth. I was undiagnosed at the time with borderline personality disorder, which causes you to have a very low, almost non-existent sense of self and self-worth. And I was very dependent on the people around me to tell me how I felt about myself. So being in this relationship from such a young age too, I put up with a lot because that was, I guess, the love I thought I deserved at the time. And it makes me really sad to think about that because, like, in hindsight, which again is 2020, it's like, oh, babe, you deserve so much better. Yeah. And thankfully for her, she has a lot better now. The final straw. So when I came home from work, I worked at Tim Hortons at the time. And it was just one of those days that was like, you got home. You want to get home and you just want to like flop into bed because you're fucking exhausted. And everyone was being really dumb. And I remember I got home and opened the door and he had already started drinking, which was like, oh, fucking great. It was not surprising, but it was annoying. And his friend was there, so I said hi. And I was like, oh, guys, I need to go have like 5-10 minutes to just decompress after work, and then I'll come out and we can hang out. Okay? Cool. Awesome. And I go into the bedroom, shut the door, and I just like fell into bed like a tree. It was just a big plop. And I fucking sighed, pardon my language, and was just like able to breathe for like a minute. And then the door burst open, and the music's flowing in, and he has beer in his hand, and he's like, hey, let's party. And I was like, oh, fuck's sake. And I'm laying there with my arm over my eyes, just trying to like, literally I asked for like 5 to 10 minutes. You can't give me that. You can't let me have just that to just breathe. Comes in, he's talking about, yeah, let's go, like, woo, and he's drunk, and I honestly, I wasn't listening to what he was saying. It was slurred, couldn't understand, and I was just focused on the switch in my head that had flipped. And I just remember thinking to myself, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is it. And it seems silly in comparison to all the other things that I put up with the cheating, with the financial abuse, with the drinking till you don't remember our conversations, the cheating, I think I already said that. But it was just that little moment of you can't let me just have 1 minute. That was the final straw. Thank you.
A lot of motif about drinking tonight. Sometimes positive, sometimes not so much. I hate microphone stands. I have for decades. This one is just taking a particular amount of revenge on me. We are got our last performer. Jason, I have met here in Hamilton. We also did the stand-up workshop together, which was great fun, which was an incredible learning experience. I do not do stand-up across the board. I have gotten away with it 3 or 4 times. It's a very different beast. With a narrative, I always felt like you can you can explore something. You've got more space. Stand up, some part of my brain goes, you have to make people laugh here, 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 and here, and here, otherwise you fail. And I can fake it. I can decide I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to pretend that I'm a stand-up and get away with it. But I like taking the workshop. I like the precepts. I like trying to learn how to hold myself with people who do it and make it look natural. What Jason does looks natural. It also looks incredibly unnatural in the best sense of the term. I have no idea what he's going to do this evening. His command is something else. He did the first storytelling event here, and it was mind-blowing. His routine at the workshop, the performance after the workshop was outstanding. And I think I've unofficially gotten him to sign up to do an evening of Readers Theater where we're going to do William S. Burroughs. So everybody here should come to that, especially if you don't know who William S. Burroughs is, because it will be a delightful surprise. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, Jason Thompson.
Thank you, Michael. Most people who see me don't think I do stand-up either. I arrived in Toronto from Calgary, Alberta, in 1985, and the first job I managed to secure was as a busboy at a now defunct Jewish deli on, at the time, the intersection of Yonge and Front Shopsies. And it took me a while to bond, but eventually I became friends with a rowdy shipper-receiver who worked in the kitchen named Kevin, who liked to race motorcycles on the weekend. Kevin's enthusiasm for motorcycle racing was unfortunately matched with his propensity for accidents, the most spectacular of which was a flame out on the Don Valley Parkway, which was luridly captured by a Toronto Sun photographer and held a place of honor on Kevin's wall, framed. That, coupled with the fact that most of his leg was made out of heavy-duty medical plastic, soured my enthusiasm when he kept asking me to, "Hey, why don't you take a spin on my scooter sometime?" We were both heavy drinkers at that point, but I was usually content to just stay at home and read while he was out terrorizing the Toronto highways. But eventually his persistence paid off and I relented. But on this particular occasion, I was actually at a party, one of those rare occasions where I went. It was a staff party, as a matter of fact. And we had arranged to meet the following day at, I'm not sure if it's there anymore, there was a McDonald's right next to the St. Clair subway station. So we were supposed to meet that day at noon, and I woke up at the staff party on the couch at 2 in the afternoon. He contacted the house angrily, wanting to know where I was, and after apologizing to him, I assured him I would be there within the hour. So hungover and taking my time, hoping that this would dissuade him, I arrived at the St. Clair subway station / McDonald's at around 4:15. And to my surprise, there was Kevin, nonplussed, but not particularly happy either. I strode in, looked into his eyes, and he said, "Let's go." Went outside, saw his Ninja 900, get on the back. I mounted it, trying to hold back my tears, And I said, where are we going? He said, we're going to go to your place, but first we're going to pick up some beer. So we drove to the beer store. He picked up a 2-4 of, I don't know what sort of Canadian swill he was drinking, but he drank a lot. Plomped it onto my lap, and he said, hold on to this beer for your fucking dear life. So I had to, I think this is the first time since I was 10 years old that I'd been on a motorcycle, and this was a streamlined Japanese crotch rocket. So I was going to put my gangly frame on this thing and hold on to the beer, and then somehow also hold on to my annoyed host, to say the least. He decided to take us back to the scene of his spectacular accident. I lived on Sackville Street in East Toronto, and he took the DVP. And to indicate just how thoroughly annoyed he was with my tardiness, he decided that every time we would hit a swerve or a curve in the road, he would do what they refer to as knee draggers. So he's on the bike, and he's going down like this, like that, like this, like that. And I'm holding on to the case of beer with my eyes shut, trying to match his movements. And he's like showing off how far his knees can go to the ground. I finally opened my eyes when we got to Sackville Street. He stops the bike. I had to teach him a lesson, so I angrily got off the bicycle, ripped my helmet off, threw it on the ground contemptuously, angrily threw my jacket on the ground, looked at him, and then promptly vomited. That was the last straw. Our next motorcycle excursion didn't take place for a few months. Kevin evidently at this point had forgiven me and had phoned me up excitedly one night. Hey man, you're never gonna believe this. What? So I came home from work the other night, stopped off at a 7-Eleven to get a sandwich, come outside, and there's this dude looking at my bike. And he comes up to me and we start talking about the bike, you know, this, that, Japanese, blah, 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 blah. And he says, this is going to sound a little strange, but I'm being totally serious. I'll pay you $200 if you, with my instructions on how to do it, roll the bike over my body. What? That's what he said, man. $200. I said, yeah, on the condition that I can bring a friend, you. Oh, how very thoughtful of you, I said, hoping that my sarcasm would have some effect on him. It didn't. Let me get this straight. A random stranger comes up to you and offers to pay you $200 if you roll your big, intimidating Ninja 900 crotch rocket over him. Is that right? Yeah, man, that's what he said. Kevin, this sounds clearly like some kind of a gay thing. Yeah, well, that's why it's important that you're there, man. Oh, thank you, Kevin. No, two of us, we stand a chance, you know what I mean? He's going to pay us, what the hell, it's great material, et cetera, et cetera. So he talked me into it, and we met this chap at his hotel outside Toronto Pearson Airport. I can't remember exactly where the hotel was. We met him. He seemed like a nice enough fellow, sober, literate, compact. And he gave us the instructions. The first thing we had to do was go to Canadian Tire and purchase a 2x8 piece of lumber. So we did that, and then we reconvened at a vacant lot somewhere between the airport and the hotel. This is many decades ago. I can't remember exactly the location, but we did find this vacant lot. And we had the wood in, I believe he was the guy that drove us to Canadian Tire. So he comes out, it's the middle of summer, he lies down and he explains the process to us. So he's lying on the ground, we put the board over his abdomen, and then the two of us roll the bike up. When it's at the center, at the apex, The weight, it was like 400 plus pounds, presses all the air out of his body. He passes out, and then we roll the bike down. As the air re-enters his bloodstream and turns into oxygen or whatever the process is, it's actually called hypophyxelia. That's the process. Or in modern parlance, breath play. So he comes to, and then he gets really high. That's the gimmick. And the board is to make sure that the undercarriage of the motorcycle doesn't weasel rip my flesh apart. So he's a dated Frank Zappa reference there for you, kids. Rip his guts out, eviscerate him. So the board protects him. So we did this miraculously without injury, and we couldn't believe our luck. So he invited us back. Not only did he pay us, but he invited us back to the hotel, and he was going to pay us. He was going to pay for our meal and our drinks, et cetera, et cetera. So at this point, my theory was correct. I could tell clearly that this fellow was deeply enamored with my friend Kevin. And what the hell, though? We were all having a good time, and no one was hurt. Everyone got their rocks off in one fashion or another. He then, when we were eating, said that the same process could be achieved with any amount of mass pressing the air out of his body. It needn't be a motorcycle, particularly. So we're in the bar, and at this point we had gone back up to his hotel room and started to raid his mini bar, being the callow, opportunistic youths that we were at the time. And so we're up there, and he's saying, the same thing can happen with any weight. How much do you guys weigh? Kevin said he was like 200 plus. I, at the time, was a robust 120. And he said, okay, perfect. So, okay, I don't know. Why don't you guys link arms and then press all your weight into my stomach? So, I don't know why we had to link arms, but we did. And we started pressing down determinedly onto his stomach, and it was just a hopeless failure. And then he said, the two of you at the same time. So we tried to stand on his stomach like this, and we're sort of pressing down, and everyone's just laughing, and we're falling off. And then some bright spark had the idea of going onto the bed, again linking arms, and actually jumping onto him. We tried that once. Ow! Scream of pain. But we were all drunk and laughing and giggling, so it didn't really matter. Ended up on the floor in a heap. It was ridiculous, pathetic. We're all rolling around. So at one point, I left to use the bathroom, and I'm walking, shaking my head at the madness of the evening. They're still giggling and laughing in the other room. I go in, I urinate, wash my hands, splash some water on my face, start posing in the mirror, looking at myself, hanging out with myself. I'm in there for 5 minutes, just wasting time. And I've noticed there's a dip in the laughter. I come out, open the door, and there's no noise at all except for a strange gurgling sound. I go in. Kevin's astride, let's call him the Mark at this point, sitting on the Mark's chest with a plastic bag around his head. And there's this horrible gurgling noise. Even in my drunken state, I had enough foresight to realize that this wasn't a good situation. And I ran in and managed to push Kevin's 200-pound heft off the guy, ripped the plastic bag off his head. He's completely white as a ghost, and his lips are purplish blue. That was the last straw. Thank you.
I don't think anyone could follow that. I kind of like the suspense level, but, you know, living is good as well. If I wipe out in a car accident over the next year or so, would you read my eulogy? And you can make up anything you want. We're at the end of this tonight. All good things come to an end. So, just across the board, once again, thank you, everybody who came in to do this. In no particular... Oh, actually, let's do it in the order of performers. Edith, who is left. Give her a hand anyhow. Come on. She can watch the tape. She can see it. Brian, who came all the way in from Toronto. Kristen, who also came all the way to Toronto. Who was now? Oh, that was me. I live here. That's okay. And Faye and Jason, of course. Thanks again to Dex and to George for the audio visual. This is a monthly event. Everybody has been here for a purpose. Thank you, everyone who's come in. And I'm trying not to make a motif of bringing in people I knew 40 years ago. But between Catherine from last time and Kristen this time, God, who knows who we're going to find around next time. I'm not sure what the topic of the next event's going to be. It will be the third Friday in March. Everybody here is welcome to come see it and possibly to perform. Thank you again for encouraging my behavior and encouraging around. Have a great evening, everyone. Cheers.